We have a new guest. Who are you? What brings you to JFall?
So my name is Hanno Embregts, and JFall is my home conference, right? It's very close to my home, one of my favorites in the year. So I try to be here every year if I can.
I see on your tag you have the speaker badge. That means you have a talk. What is it about?
I did a talk on Project Loom, but not the virtual threads part. I did an intro, but the focus was on structured concurrency and scoped values, which is the work that's being done because virtual threads are now available. So I did an introduction, did a few live demos. Yeah.
Project Loom, virtual threads. We talked about these OpenJDK projects before. These projects, they go into different versions of Java because of JEPs. So you can have still evolutions within these projects. So Project Loom is still evolving?
Yeah, it is. One of the first deliverables was virtual threads, became final in Java 21. And still parts of the project are being released to the newer Java version. So structured concurrency and scoped values was one of them. And those features are being re-previewed in 23 and also 24, probably. Based on the feedback they get from developers and a few API changes, like it goes with all JEPs, I guess. So, okay, yeah.
Virtual threads, what should I use them for?
So any place where you would use regular threads right now, but you are seeing a lot of waiting time on I/O. So you're calling a database or an external service, you can improve those situations with virtual threads, because the waiting and the blocking part of the classic threads is being swapped out when you use virtual threads because they don't block the classic threads anymore. Right? The blocking part is done on the virtual thread, but that's a JVM only construct. So the actual OS threads are no longer being blocked. And if those periods of time are quite large, then you will get a much better performance out of that. So also, you can also conclude if your problem is CPU based, yes, so you've got large computations that take a long time, virtual threads won't add the performance there because there are no blocking waiting times.
So if I do API calls and I'm waiting for an answer or I'm loading database content, that's when virtual thread can help.
Yeah, that's exactly the situation, yeah.
But indeed, they are not a solution for everything.
Sorry?
They are not a solution for everything.
No. Actually, if you would try to use them for CPU-intensive work, probably they will be a bit slower because there's a scheduling step involved. The virtual thread has to be scheduled to run on a platform thread, and that's some overhead that you're not getting the time back, right, with CPU-intensive tasks. So yeah.
Your talk, was it again with the guitar?
I do a lot of talks with guitars. This talk wasn't about music. But I've done an extra talk, the Ignite sessions during this day. That was about music, together with Marit van Dijk from JetBrains. And we did just a fun talk about how you can sing the words public static void main to a number of songs. And we just played a few songs and let the audience guess which songs we were playing. So I'm not sure they learned anything from it, other than that we pointed out that public static void main is going to be void main, right, from Java 23 and onwards. So we said, we have mixed feelings about this JEP, right? Because it undermines the idea for a talk. But overall, I'm happy with that JEP, actually, because it helps people who are learning Java to skip some of the more confusing concepts and just immediately go to a main method that they can write. So overall, it's a good addition, I think. Yeah.
We had a lot of discussions about this. So because this is a preview feature already a few times, that the public static main will be simplified and you don't need a class anymore. I had a chat with my colleague Simon Ritter. He's not a big fan. I am a big fan because I look at it from the point of education, getting started. But he has a very valid point. At some point, when you are doing Java development, you will need to learn what this means. Is it important that it changes?
I think I'm with you on this one. I teach a lot of junior colleagues of mine to learn Java. And when they come into my classroom, they immediately have this prejudice about Java being verbose or slow or outdated. And if the first example I show them is public static void main string array args, that image of that vision of the language will not change because of that. So I think it's a question of skipping all that stuff when you can skip it and bringing it up again when they need to learn it. So, of course, you should remember to bring it up again, because if you never do, then I'm with Simon on that one. But you have to bring it up when it becomes relevant, and then I think it's a good thing for the language overall.
So it's one of the many evolutions in Java. You also talked about virtual threads. What are some of the other main topics in Java evolutions that we should be following?
Oh, that's a very good question. There's so much stuff happening right now. I have been very interested in the pattern matching side of things, but overall everything that comes out of that Project Ember, is really interesting because it immediately influences the language and how we use it. So that's an interesting tangent to discover and research. I'm also quite excited about the new ideas for the new serialization feature, or as they call it, marshalling now, which also will use elements from pattern matching. So, for example, deconstruction patterns that you can define in a class to configure how a class is deconstructed. First, that feature needs to be available in Java, so that will take probably another 1 or 2 versions. And then afterwards, that will pave the road for a new version of serialization. And that's a very exciting, at least I'm very interested in it, because this is also one of the areas where Java doesn't have the best image. And I think I would really want to see that image improved. And I think the marshalling endeavor can really help there.
Yeah, it's one of the things that Java evolves slowly, although we have this 6 months release cycle. But on the other hand, it's nice that you mentioned it. So this pattern matching, the way they implement it already envisions other changes within the JDK. So it's really important how one change influences another.
Yeah, and I liked the way that they coordinate these changes amongst each other. So there has gone many thought in let's introduce it now, and let's introduce the following feature after that, so that we can build towards something else that is then released based on the right foundations. And I think that's a very clever process. Yeah.
Do you have any new talks coming up with or without guitars?
Actually, this week I got an email from JavaLand saying they accepted one of my newest talks. So I got the familiar feeling like, yes, oh no, I don't have that talk yet. But it will be all right in the end. It's about, I did a course on Jakarta EE and microprofile, and I think I spent a morning teaching my students how to do JWT authentication with a REST backend and an Angular frontend, and it just struck me how much trouble I was having preparing that demo. So then I was like, I've done the work already, let's create a talk out of it. It's not the newest technology, but I think it's still useful because it can help other people save time. I spent like a week on it before I had it working the way I wanted, and I was like, that's strange, I'm quite experienced, why doesn't it work instantly? So I'll create a summary of that, do some live demo, and like in 45 minutes tell people how to have that working. So it will be live coding mainly, I think.
Isn't that something for people who want to become a speaker, is take a problem you have solved that apparently no one else has, or they just don't talk about it and show it?
Yeah, that's a good general advice. I always try to create talks that I have spent a lot of time on already, regardless, right? So for my regular job or for something else. So I wouldn't recommend just sitting down with an empty sheet of paper like, what is my talk going to be about? Because that's very hard, and it really has to be based on like a problem in real life. And also because you've spent some time on it, it gives you a head start in the subject, right? In the topic. And then it always helps to bounce the idea off other people, right? So at my employer InfoSupport, we host these open space sessions. We call them talk marketplaces, where everyone can share ideas for talks with each other. And I shared this idea with 3 other experienced speakers. And they all said, yeah, it might be some older technology, but I would still want to see this talk. So I really needed their encouragement, right, to really get to it. And I think I would recommend, if you're a speaker, find those people and gather them around you, where you can bounce your ideas off, and they'll either encourage you or give you some tips how to improve or something, and that will really help.
Thanks for the tips. Thank you for your time, and have fun for the rest of the day.